Willson Contreras. My
Yeah.
Chicago Cubs actually they reached a deal before going to arbitration, which is a very unique situation in general that they're even going to arbitration. That doesn't happen during the season at all for a lot of reasons. It happened this year just because of the lockout and the compressed season. The arbitration hearings were not able to happen. They tried to avoid arbitration hearings during the season because essentially arbitration hearings come down to a ball club just trashing their player to argue that they should pay him less than what he's asking for, which is just obviously an uncomfortable situation. Nobody really wants that, but it's that's how the legal process works, and that's how the arbitration process works. So they try to get those things taken care of well before the season so it doesn't bleed into the season. Obviously, it was impossible this time. But fortunately, Contreras and the Cubs reached a compromise. Contreras was asking for $10.2 million this year and ended up settling for 9.625, which sounds like he is.
Ooh, I hope he can live.
Yeah, he'll be all right. But I think he's being reasonable. He's not holding out. I don't think he really wanted to hear the Cubs trash him in these arbitration hearings. It's not fun for anybody. So it's probably a benefit for him not to have to go through that. So he was more than happy to give up $600,000.
Yeah.
I mean, people are extrapolating too that could be a good sign for Contreras signing a long-term deal.
This is the question I was going to ask you. So go right ahead.
Okay.
Now I don't have to ask it. You, because I've been listening to this narrative and I don't think that's what it means at all.
Yeah. I mean, my position has not changed whatsoever. This was going to happen. This arbitration case was going to happen one way or the other, whether they settled before they went to arbitration or not. We knew this was going to happen. So I don't think this changes anything. I think it's nice that they were able to settle outside of the process. Leads to some sense of cooperation and maybe being on the same terms. But the Cubs have shown over and over again, they have sent every signal to anyone that's paying attention that they're not going to resign Willson Contreras. No matter how great he is a fantastic catcher. He is also an aging catcher. He's approaching 30 years old, which is at the point at which even the best of catchers typically tend to drop off at some point. Which even if he doesn't, I guess I'm not saying whether it's a good thing or a bad thing if the Cubs sign him to a long-term deal. I'm saying it's not going to happen. I think the Cubs have made that decision. That's just how it is. We've seen it with all their other, folk heroes and legendary superstars from the World Championship team. They have all let go in one form or another, whether it's trades or just let them go be free agents. I think the way you've seen this team constructed, the way they are clearly not in their competitive window. They've chosen not to, as I've railed against on this podcast for many months, years now, since the biblical losses comment and then the subsequent trade of Yu Darvish for pennies on the dollar. They don't want to win right now. Their idea is to rebuild, even though they refuse to say the word rebuild. And a huge commodity that they have on their hands that would be a valuable thing to trade away would be Willson Contreras, even an aging rental. I think he could be the hottest commodity on the entire trade market.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
I think they'll get back more for him than what they've gotten back for Baez and Chris Bryant and everybody else, of which they've got. That'll be a segment, maybe for another episode, further into the summer, as we'll talk about what the Cubs did get back in those trades and how they are already performing at the lower levels of the minor leagues to quite an extent. So again, it's not a value judgment. I think I'd like to see Contreras come back, maybe on a shorter term deal, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. I wouldn't want a 5 or 6 year deal for a player that is turning 30 and I don't necessarily want a catcher on my roster when he's 36 years old that has played as much as he has, even though he has been fantastic. I don't think it's necessarily the right way to go. And I don't see any signs from the Cubs that make it look like they want to do the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that suddenly because they reached an arbitration agreement means that Willson Contreras is coming back. I was actually quite surprised by those comments. It's as if no one else is seeing what has been going on
Yeah.
in the current construction of the Cubs. And you got to wonder, like other guys too, like is Patrick Wisdom going to be traded? Why not? Why not trade someone like Patrick Wisdom at his highest market value, or something like that, and get those young pieces back that we know Jed Hoyer's been under Theo Epstein's tutelage for a long time. So it's not like he doesn't know how to do that and work that. And to your point, on a later episode, you will be covering off on how some of those guys we weren't sure about and we still aren't sure about on a major league level, but at a minor league level are performing quite well. So, and at that much, the talent was assessed correctly in what they got back. So I don't know why you would, outside of like attendance, and we know attendance is important to Ricketts, since he talks about how the attendance is what made the Cubs not be able to spend money because of the biblical losses in attendance, and how attendance makes up, was it 60% of their
Crane Kenny actually went on
that
the
was
radio
Crane Kenny, you're right,
on
yeah.
several occasions saying I think it's 70% of their revenue comes from
Yeah.
game day operations, which is fine. I mean, that may or may not be true, but I don't really give a fuck. You are a major market team with your own goddamn television network. You've got multiple streams of revenue. Figure out a way to act like a major market team and spend some money and actually not field a 3A or a 4A team as they are doing right now. So
yeah, but I think there's trade pieces there, and there's no reason for anyone to believe that anyone on the Cubs roster is going to be untouchable when it comes down to trade deadline. And we always talked about Contreras just because he's a great defensive catcher, he has a plus arm, as they like to say, and he's a plus arm, and he hits for power. So he's everything you would want at the trade deadline.
I have no qualms with Willson Contreras, the player. I mean, I would like to see him, if there was a way to do a short-term deal, that'd be great, but I just don't think it's realistic.
No, that's it. He's getting a 5-year deal next year.
What I think. There's no reason, and there's no reason for him to settle either.
Yeah, why?
He should go after that 5-year deal wherever he can get it. So
why would you want to? I mean, honestly, what's the reason to stay right now?
Yeah, I mean, they traded away all of his friends. He's now the leader on the team. He's kind of the old guy on the team.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Hard to believe, but maybe he relishes that role.
Yeah, maybe. That, you know what? That is a solid point. That is a very good point. Could be like he likes. I don't know if he likes the direction. I think for him, like the reason to stay would be. Let's say he stays on a three-year deal, that he would believe that they will be competitive within the next 3 years, because there's no other reason to stay.
That's actually really interesting, because I do feel like the Cubs are on a 2 or 3 year plan right now, that next year I think they are going to try to be competitive again, which I think has been unconscionable that they haven't for the last 2. But
so you think they're going to spend money in the offseason? In other words,
I do believe they're going to spend money, and actually that's a perfect transition to my next subject. The much talked about 2022 shortstop free agent class has kind of been a dud, except for maybe Trevor Story is definitely ramping up his offensive production over the last
as
month.
A second baseman.
Yeah, things
that somehow couldn't play second base for the White Sox. What?
Yeah, but as much as we talked, the whole baseball world, and certainly us, and certainly myself, talked about, players like Carlos Correa should have been on the Cubs, I thought, this year.
Yeah, probably better not.
I wasn't necessarily as enthused about Corey Seager or Marcus Semien, who have not done a whole lot in Texas.
Yikes.
It's kind of amazing how much we talked about that class and how much it has not really performed up to the billing. But there is a new class of free agents that people are talking about for 2023. That is coming to the fore with Trey Turner is certainly top of the list that you just saw there on the south side with the
Well,
Dodgers.
we're gonna go after him hard because he gets walked on 1-2 counts intentionally.
Yes.
Whoa!
You all right over there?
Sorry, my phone just fell over.
Technical difficulties. Oh no.
I'm
There you
back.
go.
I'm back. I'm here.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
Another on that list would be again Carlos Correa, who's on a series of 1-year deals with the Twins, where he can opt out of any of his. I think he makes 33 million per year right now for 3 years, but he can opt out after this first year or second year. But I think that puts Carlos Correa back on the table for the Cubs, which it seemed like they were working towards a deal at one point in the offseason that never came together for whatever reason that we may or may not ever hear about. But I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility once again. So I might spend a whole nother off season doing the same segments we did last year.
Oh, one can only hope, right, guys?
Carlos Correa should be on the Cubs. But again, just think about how different that team is immediately with a legit shortstop like that.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Correa shows up, unlike what he's done thus far for the.
He's been hurt. Has been a lot of his issue. But
I know. Is he injury prone? Because he's been hurt a lot recently.
That is a concern.
He could be
sure.
injury prone.
That is a concern that was brought up, that I brought up even in the past offseason. So that's something to consider. We don't have to get too deep into this, but Trey Turner that I mentioned before would probably be
now that
top of my list. But that's the top of everybody's list. But again, the Cubs are
the
third largest market in America. They are. They have their own.
It's not like they haven't spent money before. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
We agree. I mean, they should be spending the money, and it seems like they will be ready to do that next year. And maybe that works into their plans with Willson Contreras, like we just said. If I think they'd like him for a shorter term deal, and maybe that coincides with a massive spending spree for next year. If they want to contend, it would not be bad to have a Willson Contreras behind the plate.
He's probably the type of player too, since he's been there as long as he has, that you would sit down and say, this is the plan. This is the plan. I mean, and we all know plan, that it doesn't always work out the way it's supposed to work out. But here's the plan. And this is what we're comfortable with doing right now. We want you to be a part of it. So I agree.
Or maybe they're not. Maybe they don't want him at all. I mean, that's where we're at.
Yeah, we don't know. So we'll see.
They've shown they've been more than willing to get rid of all the legends they've had on that squad. So for whatever reason.
Word Hole Media.